Hi, I'm Mr. Miyagi, and this is Mr. Miyagi's Workshop. That's right, we're finishing up the old 1975 CB360. Today, being Monday, I thought we'd start off by making a throttle cable. Now, this was something I just temporarily set up for starting the engine over there on the bench. And I have new material and everything that we can build this out of. So what we're going to have to first do is we're first going to have to get the length that we need to get down to the carburetors for the outer casing. And then we can work on the interior. So, as I always say, let's get to it. So one of the major things that we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to remove the fuel tank. So we're going to have to come from the bottom of this throttle down and figure our passageway to where we get to our part where this attaches to the carburetor throttle itself. So I'm going to pull off this air cleaner and everything to give us a little bit more room in there, probably pull the other one off so it'll make it easier for us. And then I'm going to grab some casing that we can make our own little route here. What I have here is a cable that I made up for another bike, which we never used. One thing I like about it is it's got the adjustment here. It also has an adjustment here, so you can take up a lot of slop in the cable, sloppage, as they say. It doesn't fit through my hole here on my throttle base itself, and the barrel itself is a little bit large, so I'm going to drill this out just a little bit so that it fits, and then modify this so that it'll actually fit up inside there. And then we can put the other piece on that screws on here. But I'll show you here right after I get this all done. We can kind of get it all put together. Now I modified this. I drilled this out a little bit. You want to make sure you clean these areas up so there's no drag on that, no burrs hanging out there. And I ground down the sides of this barrel so that it would fit in there properly. When we put this finally all together, we're going to lubricate this area too. So this will all just slide in there and lock in. And then we're going to slide everything up through the throttle mount. And then that'll fit up in there. And then that just screws up in place. So I had this little elbow that I'd put on there. This was off of another throttle altogether. And it didn't quite fit up in the hole here. And it was threaded. And so I ended up grinding it down so that it would fit up inside there. So it's kind of a nice fit. And then, of course, we need to hook our barrel up. So those just slide in there. And then we can put the cap on. And then that just slides on there. So now we're going to pull this up tight. So we want to feed this with enough line so when the front end moves back and forth that it's not going to bind or catch or anything. So I've got it ran down along where the clutch cable goes to the other side. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to mark this with a piece of tape. Roughly that area right there where we're going to cut the cable approximately. So let's go over to the bench and see what we can come up with. I got this really nice kit. It comes with a lot more. There's a big box underneath. And I'm able to build all sorts of different cables and such. Everything from clutch cables to brake cables to whatever. And it came with a ton of different parts and stuff. So right now what we need to do is we need to cut this off and we need to install that on there. We need to put on another barrel. Now this is the barrel that we'll use on there. I'm going to go over and fit this to see if it's the proper one, and I'll be right back. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to cut this one I already put on there off. remove the inner cable out of there so we don't cut it off, so we have enough to make the right length of cable here. So I'm going to go over to the bandsaw. I'm going to cut this off. I could have probably used these cutters, but I like using the bandsaw. And I need to make sure that this inner core, and I'll show you what the inner core looks like. Inner core is this Teflon that the actual cable slides against, so it makes a nice, easy moving cable. So now that we've got this one cut off, and we're going to run it back through, and hopefully I can get this all to go without too much problem. Now you can do it with an older cable and just clean it up really good and lubricate it, and it'll be just fine. So now we need to put a little cable end on this. Let's see what I got down here. And then that just pushes on. Alrighty. And now we have the adjuster. So we're going to have to go back over to the bike now to get this length right in here so that we can cut it and then solder the barrel on. I went with a little larger barrel than the one I had over there. Plus I dropped it and I have no idea where it went. But this will actually catch the outer rotator on the throttle on those carburetors a little better. I'm just thinking it would fit a little better. So you can see back up in here is where the cable has to go down and attach into one of those spots right down in there. So I'm going to have to mark it with a marker, and I've got it, basically ran out the way we want it to go. But I'm going to mark this right now. So I'm going to have to put the camera down. So hang with me here. Now I did cut this a bit longer than what I needed. This is the company that I got my kit from. So this is all going to go together like that. And then the barrel piece come down and hit on that. All right, I got the right one this time. The little ball end that'll fit down in there. So this has to go on first, and then our little ball end goes on. And one of the things with those is you kind of want to spread everything out. Now I'm going to set up a soldering this, show you how I do it. I know there are a lot of guys will be doing it probably a different way, but this is the way I like to do it without putting too much heat on the cable itself. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to spread this out a little bit here on the end, so when I put the solder in there, it grabs these ends that have been kind of flailed out here, and it gives you a little bit more support. You just kind of work them out. I'm just trying to bloom it out, as I guess is what they'd call it. So then when this slides up there, it'll be right in there. I don't know if you can make that out, and then the solder will fit right in here. What I have here is something that we got out of a little antique store, or I don't know, it was a secondhand store anyway. And this is a copper head here. And what I do is I heat that up to heat my solder and everything up, so I'm not putting direct flame on the cable itself. This works quite well. I mean, you can do it this way with the torch, but I prefer to do it with this. I also use the 50-50 solder, which is 50% lead and 50% tin. And then I also have this ruby fluid solder paste. This stuff works really well. You just jab your stuff in there. So all you have to really do is just kind of get it down in there, and that will help that solder go where it's supposed to go. So I'm going to heat this up now, and then we'll get to soldering. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to heat this up enough to where I can melt my solder, and it looks like it's hot enough. We'll go a little bit longer here. Now you see how nice that turned out? It fills in a really nice little puddle there, and using these forceps made it a lot easier on my fingers. So I'm going to let everything cool down. Okay, so now we're hooked up on the carburetor itself. And that works pretty good. Nice return and everything. Got this all set up here. This will get pulled back up in there. I'll probably put a little clamp of some sort to hold that in place. So now I've moved on to bleeding off the front brakes. And there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can spend time hand pumping the brake cylinder, or you can get one of these vacuum brake bleeders from the auto parts store, or you can make up something like I've done here. Now what this is an old vacuum pack pump, you know, for vacuum packing meals and such. Heat band that heats up and seals the bags went out on it. So we were going to toss it, and then I got thinking, you know, it's a vacuum pump. Maybe I can use it. So I set it up so that it can actually pull the fluid through. And it works quite well. So you just turn that on and open up your vent there and let it suck out the bubbles. I don't know what it is, but for some reason the front brakes seem to be the worst to bleed off. And I've done it overnight. I've just let them sit and let all the air go up through the master cylinder. Or you can sit and hand pump it. Or, like I said, you can use this little vacuum pack thing. And all I did, I mean, you could probably find one of these at the secondhand store and just pull the pump out. That's all I did. And then I put in a little trigger switch on there so that it works. Or, you know, you can go through the expense of buying one of these. I kind of like this little electric setup. All right, one more test here, and we'll see if we can get this to go. Well, feels like we've got brakes. Yeah, I don't see any more bubbles or anything coming out of there. Plus, letting it sit overnight will help bleed any other air or whatever that's in here out. Yeah, that's right. I got the top end off. Thing was running kind of okay, but I couldn't get it to run perfect. And then I popped the cap off there to check the chain, and it was loose. And I checked this front one here. It looked okay. I was going like, well, I'm not sure what's going on. I mean, now these were the old parts. I never put new ones in. Well, this is the old one. It looks fine. I mean, it's a little wore, but not bad. Well, I ended up taking off this back piece that holds in the back adjuster, this one right here, and it's laying down inside the engine, and there's a piece gone, but I was able to pick that out. So this broke off down inside there. But I was smart enough ahead of time to buy new ones. So I'll see if I can't get this all back together again. Dang it. So yesterday I had the rocker box top off 2 different times. Had the cam stuff around, changed that just to double check to make sure that I had it timed right. I couldn't get this to run properly on the left-hand cylinder. I thought maybe it was timing or something. The last time I went through, I reset everything here, set the chain tensioning, adjusted the valves and stuff, made sure they were on. went over and used my little pointer here, set everything up for the points. Now, commonmotors.com, they have several really good videos on timing these things with the points. And let me tell you, it works good. But I still couldn't get this thing to run right. So I got thinking, and Mrs. Miyagi even brought up, she goes, well, maybe you got something plugged in there. Now I took these carburetors apart again and checked everything, went through everything on there. Now when I got the kit, the only jets that I did not get were the primary jets, which also feed the low idle jet, which something was happening on that side. So anyway, I took it apart and I examined the one on this side, and I could see right straight through. Everything looked good. I squirted fluid through it. Everything was great. I took the other jet and I looked at it and went, oh, I can see sort of through it. So I ended up taking my little cleaners, these guys here, and they're for like cleaning out the tips on your cutting torch. And you can buy this at the welding shop, should have these without a problem. I've had this one for quite some years there. But I ended up finding the right size one. I used the one that was clear. I didn't want to grind any more out of it. So I found one that would slide through and clean up. So I ended up cleaning out that jet that looked like it was open, but it wasn't. It was plugged. And I squirted it again. And I don't know why that didn't come with the kit. Putting it back together, putting a 100 main jet in it, which what it would have had in their stock, put it back on there, and lo and behold, the darn thing ran. I got it all dialed in, all my little jetting set, and it should run. Now, I have not started it since yesterday, so let's see what we got. That's without the choke. And it's 30 degrees outside. And this shop isn't much warmer. I think it sounds pretty good. So this is the stage that we're at. I'm gonna put the fuel tank back on, pipe the lines down in, put some inline filters on it. Basically this bike, all it needs is just to go out on the road and test road around the area, double checking stuff, tightening up. And that's the big thing. When you build these bikes from ground up, don't plan on taking on a long trip. Do your 20-mile runs or your 10-mile runs, bring it back and tighten stuff up. This is for the people who's wondering how I get my bikes on and off this big table. I've got this lift overhead that works quite well, I must say. The bike weighs 350 pounds. So I guess the only thing to do is take this thing for a ride. Just thought I'd let you also know that this bike is going to be in the Linden motorcycle show. It's Northwest Classic Motorcycle Show in Linden, Washington on April 22nd. We're going to have this in there, and then maybe one of my XS 650s, which will be up for sale. So if you're looking to have some fun and check out some cool bikes and stuff. So I was able to take it for a ride. I put on about 1 mile and 2/10 or something just around our neighborhood here. I couldn't go too far. Doesn't have a license plate. And but it really handled nice. It did what I wanted to. It's real responsive. It's a nice bike. There's a few things that still need to be done to it. Maybe modify the throttle cable and change it to just a flex cable instead of that hard 90 up there. It tends to tap the tank when you turn it hard. Of course, you know, put the padding on the seat and then hand it over to the owner. So it looks like this is the end of this episode on the 1975 CB360. I'm thinking I may end up having to find one of these things. I had a ball riding it. I had a really great time building this bike. I hope you enjoyed these episodes that we've done on this. I appreciate you. If you've subscribed to my channel, I really appreciate that. It makes me feel good that at least I'm getting out there a little bit and having fun with these bikes. So as always, if there's any comments or questions, put it in the comment section below. Or you can send it to my email address at tmiyagi@hotmail.com. And if you've liked this episode and this series, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget that ringy-dingy button over there for the next episode coming up, which I'm not sure what's going to be yet. This is Mr. Miyagi saying, you be safe out there, and I hope to see you on the road. Ciao.